Well, welcome to the second in the series, The Crimes of Tommy Robinson. And now we're going to look at Tommy Robinson, the fraudster. Much is made of it repeatedly by mainstream journalists all over the place, and Nigel Farage and other people. So let's actually look and examine all the facts. Now, to understand the situation with this fraud allegation to do with mortgages, from the outset I want to say this. It was clear, as you'll see, that the authorities were after Tommy Robinson. I mean, they did a tax investigation that just surrounded his entire family and relatives, going through documents and documents on tax, and they went back 10 years, but they couldn't find anything, and there was no prosecution. But at last, they did come up with something. They did find something, and what it was Tommy had lent his brother a sum of money as a deposit on a house. Now, that particular transaction was all over. The house had already been sold. No one lost a penny. The brother had sold the house, I think 6 or 9 months before. But in going through all the paperwork, having literally raided his parents, everyone in his family, raided them all, managed to find this. And what it was I think, well, Tommy had lent the money to this relative, and maybe had been a co-signatory or something to support the application. In any event, he ended up with a number of other people and a mortgage broker to do with fraud. Now, technically, it is fraud. It's fraud to misrepresent yourself on a mortgage application. That is fraud. So, for example, if you say your income is more than it really is, that's fraud. If you say the money you're providing as a deposit is yours and not another loan, that's fraud. All those are technically fraud. Okay, I mean, the matter was over. No one lost a single cent. That is the situation. But I have to go into it a bit more, because what this is about is the third tier of justice, which is exclusive to Tommy Robinson. That's what it's about. So we're going to look at his problems in this case, where no one lost a cent, by the way, and he had nothing to gain in this. It wasn't his mortgage or anything. He had nothing to gain in this personally. So we'll look at that situation, and then we'll look at the case of Lord Mandelson, who also managed to do something very, very similar. And then we're going to look at the outcomes of both of these people. Okay, so let's go on with the video.
Right.
So they fabricated this.
Well, not only that, but no one goes to, I mean, you have rock stars who don't go to jail where, God forbid, you run a black light over the hotel room when they're done with it. They've been completely trashed.
Well, I went to jail this was the first incident. Then they come through 3 months later. They arrested my wife. They arrested me on tax irregularities, money laundering. They went through my entire life. They basically got every one of my files, not just mine,
right.
My mother's, my father's, my wife's, her brother, my cousin, my aunt, my whole family. And they took the whole family's finances to pieces. They went back 10 years.
So is that the main reason when you were imprisoned was tax? Is that what they used, kind of an Al Capone?
They were full Al Capone.
If in the end, no, I got not guilty on tax. I walked on tax.
Okay.
They said
okay, so we don't have too much. What put you in the slammer?
They in the slammer for lending. I lent my brother-in-law £20,000. You know mortgage forms.
Yeah.
So in the UK we have self-certification mortgages. So you put down enough of a deposit and you get a mortgage, and they ask you how much you earn. And if he earned £10,000 a year, and on the form he put £20,000. He got a mortgage. This is in 2008. He got a mortgage. He owned the house for 9 months and he sold the property. Yeah, I lent him the deposit. That's what I went to prison for.
Because your brother claimed he made more than he did.
He claimed when he got the mortgage, but
right.
The mortgage company were paid back. The mortgage company lost.
No. I know. I just want to I get it. So that's what they nailed you for. Okay, so you're in jail.
So at this point, the state had failed on 2 charges, but managed to find a third charge for what they call fraud. And technically it is. Of course, nobody lost a cent. And to do that, they went through the family's records going back 10 years, looking for anything they could pin on Tommy Robinson. But now, in jail for that fraud charge, what was to happen to him?
Okay, is it true that they tried to put you in with Islamic inmates who tried to have a go at you? Not to laugh, but...
There were 6 Muslims who got 30 years. They were caught with guns, IEDs, suicide notes. They were on their way to kill us. They were on their way to target me, to kill us. And they were intercepted, and there was a big court case. They got 30 years. I then go to prison for this minor paper offence which in the UK, you should go to an open prison. They took me to maximum security Woods Hill prison, HMP Wood Hill, which it holds some of the country's most feared terrorists.
Right.
On my first day in there, when I was on the induction day, my door opened and it was an ex-Royal Marine who is a prison officer. And he said, when they come to get you from this cell, do not leave this cell. Your life depends on it. And I said, what? And he said, I'm telling you, do not leave this cell. Your life depends on it. 20 minutes later, he's come back with 2 other prison officers. And he said, come on, you're going to Bewick. And I'm not going anywhere. Yeah?
Right.
He says, if you don't, I'm going to arrest you.
Same guy.
Fine, arrest me. Yeah. So he arrested me. Now he come back later and said, do you know where they were taking you? I said, where? He said, they were putting you with the 6 Muslims that are in here for planning to kill you. So
that guy's your guardian angel, so to speak.
Yeah, he was. He saved my life. The very next day, I had a meeting with my solicitor in the prison. I went to the meeting with my solicitor, and then afterwards, I'm getting walked back by prison officers, and there's a waiting room. They open the door to the waiting room. I see the beard straight away, so I know what's happening. I don't know in America.
Well, they could be hipsters.
No, in the UK prisons, they are like ISIS training camps. Yeah, well, Islam has taken over the UK prisons, and they are radicalising an army of the most hardened and toughened men in the UK. That's what's happening.
Continue.
Yeah. And from that, so the door's open. I've seen the big beards, and I know what's going to happen. I don't even sit down. The door, and the prison officers locked me in the room. They locked the door, and I was beaten. But luckily, the 3 Muslims that were in the room, they didn't have any prior knowledge by the look of it that I was going to be there. If they did, they'd have had knives, they'd have had blades, and I'd have been properly. Instead, I lost my teeth. But that's not too bad, because I've got these lovely teeth now.
So they look better than most teeth in the UK.
Well, I lost all these. So
look good now.
I lost my teeth, I had my head glued up, and I was beaten to within an inch of my life.
It is worth noting at this point that the state also endangered Tommy in prison. In later imprisonments, it became a pattern by the state, even for the most minor of charges. But there is a side story to this, and I think it's worth telling. When they'd failed, the authorities, to find any tax problems with previous 10 years and everything, couldn't find anything. They found these forms, all the matter was settled. Had they not raised it, no one was worried. The mortgage had been repaid, the transactions were over, no one lost money. But they got him. But he wasn't that involved, actually. He'd lent his brother money. Okay, so why did he plead guilty? Well, this is interesting now. The authorities said, you plead guilty, fine, we won't put your wife on the stand. But if you don't plead guilty, we will. Now, Tommy needed, in those EDL days and even now, needed to protect, though it's his ex-wife now, needed to protect his family. He didn't want his wife appearing, photographs, everything, to becoming a public figure. He totally laid down his body to protect his wife. In fact, Tommy's the sort of person that if he saw a woman being assaulted, he'd be the very first to go and deal with it. He really would. So, which makes the ridiculous accusation about Wynn's violence, which is no crime at all, but I'll be dealing with that in another episode. So there we are. He decided to protect his wife. No way. And with all the threats against him, was he going to expose his family and his wife to this? So he decided to plead guilty. But he pleaded guilty to fraud. That's a fact. But when you know the real story, you begin to understand just how distorted it is to the public. So let's now look at Lord Mandelson and his particular situation, which he had to resign for. And he not only did something wrong as regards his mortgage application by not declaring the fact that his deposits were a loan already, right? So he misrepresented, if you like, his mortgage application to the Building Society, which is very much what the Tommy situation was. He also, of course, broke the rules of Parliament. So what we're going to do is quickly go into that. Now, I don't think anyone would, I'm sure no one lost any money in Lord Mandelson's case either. And I'm sure they would never have lost money in Lord Mandelson's case. I'm absolutely certain that he would not have done anything to cause anyone to lose money in Lord Mandelson's case. But there's no difference really between the two that I can see, none at all. So let's go into that now. Well, the best way to explain the Lord Mandelson affair is to read out this press snippet. Thus, on October the 13th, 2008, The man who had resigned from the government in 1998 because he took $150,000 mortgage from the Building Society without disclosing that he had received a related loan of $373,000 from the former Paymaster General Geoffrey Robinson to buy a home in Notting Hill, became Lord Mandleson of Foy and took his seat in the House. Now, at the time, he also breached parliamentary rules in this affair, and this is what the investigation into that found. A damning report from Elizabeth Filkin, the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner, upheld 2 of the 3 complaints levelled against the former minister, Mr Mandleson, for not registering the loan and not disclosing another £35,000 loan on his Hartlepool constituency home when he obtained his £150,000 mortgage from the Britannia Building Society. She concludes, Mr Mandleson, unknown to Britannia Building Society, received his mortgages on a different basis from that which would have properly applied to other members of the public. I'll simplify that. Mr Mandleson simply did not declare the source of the rest of the money for the balance of the mortgage, and in doing so, technically would have committed fraud. Now, I'm sure Mr Mandleson had the means in one way or the other in the end to pay for it. I don't think he meant to defraud in any way, shape or form at all. But the facts are, technically, that was it. At the time, the Prime Minister of the Mandleson affair was Tony Blair, and he made the following comments. The Prime Minister, Tony Blair, has broken his silence over the resignation of Peter Mandleson, saying that the former Trade Secretary made a mistake and has paid a very heavy penalty. Well, so did Tommy make a mistake, but Tommy was trapped to protect his family. Tommy was an ordinary citizen, and Mandleson wasn't. And at that time, it was just Peter Mandleson. He wasn't a lord. But what were the outcomes for the 2 people involved in this? Well, let's look at that now. Well, Tommy Robinson got 18 months in jail. And Peter Mandleson? Oh, well, he was made a lord and has just been appointed our ambassador to the USA. In my opinion, what was offered to Tommy by dragging his wife into court and exposing her to the public, something he was always hiding, he didn't want any problems with his family, to use that even when there was nothing she could add because there was no tax thing that had been involved. She wasn't involved in any way with any mortgage loan, so the only thing was to force Tommy to plead guilty, because there is no equality before the law with Tommy Robinson.